This morning marks 5 years since the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. The unarmed black teenager was shot and killed by Officer Darren Wilson, who says Brown attacked him. A grand jury later chose not to indict Wilson. In a new interview, Brown's father tells Jeff Pegues he wants the case reopened. Jeff is in Ferguson, where he continues our series, Policing in America, 5 years after Ferguson. Jeff, what are the expectations for today?
Well, good morning. Everywhere you go here, Jerika and Ferguson, there are reminders of that painful period in this town's history. Behind me, that's where Michael Brown was shot and killed. And you can see the growing memorial there as they will honor his memory today and throughout the weekend. I spoke with Michael Brown's father, Michael Brown Sr., who told me that he's not as angry as he once was, but it is still, he says, difficult for him to revisit the moment that his son was killed. What from that day do you remember most vividly?
The phone call his grandmother called me and said that police just shot Mike and he's laying in the middle of the street. I turned to my wife when I told her that police just killed my son, and from there, it just was all moving real slow.
How does a parent move on from something like that?
I had to turn my pain into a purpose. Well, I'm trying to prepare myself for the anniversary, you know.
In the years since his son's death, Michael Brown Sr. says he's been trying to honor his son's memory. He started a foundation that includes a support group for fathers and children. He named it Chosen for Change, something he says has been lacking from local law enforcement. Policing has changed, in your view, in those 5 years?
So-so.
So-so?
Yeah.
So you don't think there's been enough change?
No, it could be more.
His most urgent plea, a second chance at justice for his son. You want them to reopen the case?
Yes, sir. I would like for Wesley Bell to reopen the case.
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Too. Wesley Bell is the new St. Louis County prosecutor. We met him 5 years ago when he first made the leap into politics after protests in Ferguson.
As a community, we have to get involved.
The next year, he was elected to the city council. And last summer, in a historic upset, Bell defeated longtime prosecutor Bob McCullough to become St. Louis County's first black prosecutor.
I'm a living testament that change has been implemented in this region.
Bell says police still have more work to do, but programs like implicit bias training are a step in the right direction.
There are many communities that have never had good relationships with officers, and so when an officer pulls someone over, they have to understand that they're dealing with all types of people and be sensitive to that.
We have to make sure that we get it right and do it the right way.
Ferguson's new police chief, Jason Armstrong, comes from a small Georgia police department. He's only been on the job here for about 5 weeks, but he felt the impact of what happened here in his previous post.
Don't shoot! That incident was a catalyst for law enforcement in this country, myself included. Even though I wasn't here in Ferguson, that rippled the nation.
Armstrong says he plans to gauge success of the department's new training programs through community feedback.
The way our police department set up, we can't have someone gone for like 2 weeks at a time doing training.
If I go to 5 meetings in 1 week and people are telling me that they hate the police officers here, we're doing something wrong with it. So we got to be out there in the community trying to right these problems that we have.
This is where it started right here.
Local filmmaker Chris Phillips lived in the same neighborhood where Michael Brown was killed.
When people come back and they ask me, have anything changed in 5 years? I'm like, no. I said, in fact, they're being more antagonistic than they were beforehand. I feel bad for the good cops that I do know, the ones that respect human life.
As for Michael Brown Sr., he hopes the anniversary of his son's death will bring the community together. What do you want his legacy to be?
Just to never forget him. The spirit lives through me. All the things that I do is through the spirit of him.
It is interesting how someone who was a protester out here is now being asked to reopen the case. I'm referring, of course, to Wesley Bell, who is now the St. Louis County prosecutor. He says that he won't comment on reopening the case out of respect for the family. He knows how painful that period was, not only for this town, but also for the country. Eureka.
Jeff, what an important follow-up. Thank you. I always think of what my grandmother said in reference to no matter how you feel about the situation, that's somebody's child. And for
Yes.
them to have to come back
Yeah.
and revisit that year after year, but, something about 5 years and marking the progress or, lack thereof in some areas.
I can't believe it's been 5 years. And as Jeff points out, it's a really interesting development that Wesley Bell has now got. It's now his case.
This inspired him, obviously,
Yes.
as we saw, to get into politics and start moving forward. So.
Yeah.